President Bola Tinubu addressed the nation on Sunday, August 4, 2024, amid ongoing protests across Nigeria. The nationwide protest, which commenced on Thursday, August 1, was in response to the hardship experienced by citizens in the country. No fewer than 17 people were reportedly killed by security agents who also arrested many protesters across the country. ATN highlights 10 key points from President Bola Tinubu's speech, but we shall be discussing 2 key points this morning. The first key highlight from the presidential speech is Tinubu regrets deaths commensurate with families. Tinubu expresses pain by the loss of lives in Borno, Jigawa, Kano, Kaduna, and other states, the destruction of public facilities in some states, and the wanton looting of supermarkets and shops, contrary to the promise of protest organizers that the protest will be peaceful across the country. Tinubu commiserates with the families and relations of those who have died in the protest. He said, "We must stop further bloodshed, violence, and destruction." And on the second presidential speech highlights, over 570 billion naira released to 36 states. State and local governments receive highest allocations ever in the history of the country from the federation account. Also, more than 570 billion has been released to the 36 states to expand livelihood support to their citizens, while 600,000 nano businesses have benefited from nano grants. An additional 400,000 more nano businesses are expected to benefit. The president continued to say, furthermore, 75,000 beneficiaries have been processed to receive 1 million naira micro and small business single-digit interest loans starting this month. He said that the government has also built 10 MSME hubs within the past year, created 240,000 jobs through them, and 5 more hubs are in progress, which will be ready by October this year. Asims, let me start. Let's start first with the first highlights. The president commiserating with the people who lost, the families of those who lost their lives during the protest. Now, from the body language of the president from the beginning of, from the time this protest was announced up until the day the president chose to, address the nation, and then his speech coming out to commiserate with the people who lost their lives. Do you think that statement truly reflects how the president feels about the people who died?
Thank you. My own opinion on this is that the president did not show empathy by conduct. I have seen where on television and in reality, where leaders of nations, even when one soul is involved and a life is lost, the conduct of the leader will show you, even without the leader saying or uttering a word to console the family, the conduct, behavior of the leader will show you that from his innermost, he feels very touched. I am not blaming Tinubu or the president, let me use the word, because we Nigerians, it's like we have lost our humanity. On a daily basis, if you drive through some cities in Nigeria, you see cops on the road. We don't regard death to say, oh, he don't die, let him just go. Even fowls and other animals, when you are slaughtering one of them or they find one dead, they gather and you see their behavior and conduct becomes very different from the normal life living. The leaders we have today, are they not from the society? How come be it that 17 people, according to reports, lost their lives in various parts of the country? Let me use the word. And as I speak, it took the president about 2 days or 3 days to even address us on the issues of commiserating with the families. Before the president's address, I was thinking that, oh, maybe one of his aides who are so busy running up and down would have even issued a press statement to them, but they didn't do that. So this is something largely, I want to say with due respect, that was not displayed on that day. One of the qualities and characteristics of leadership is showing empathy. When a thing happens, I'm not saying it should be emotional, but let it be on record that the words you have uttered out of your mouth will act as consolation to me. And there are proactive measures that you take that I see on television and say, oh, this president has really been touched. I saw quite recently on one of the national media outfits where President Joe Biden and President Putin on the other side were receiving prisoners. They did a prisoners swap where Russia released some American prisoners, America released some Russian prisoners. And at the end of the day, their presidents were in the airport, their various airports. President Biden flew down to the airport where those prisoners, coming to America, who were Americans, would be received. Putin on the other side, when the first swapped prisoner came out of the aircraft, Putin handed over to that swapped prisoner a bouquet of flower with a hug. Same with Joe Biden of America. Now, why won't people of that category, why would they die for that particular country? We don't need to be a billionaire nation. But if it's a nation that is lacking in humanity and humanness, then it's a nation that cannot even be counted among the community of nations. I told you that one of the biggest problems today that we have, corruption is just a symptom. Just like bad leadership is a symptom because of the fact that this culture of dishonor, Nigerians don't have that culture of honor, and their leaders don't have. So what else are we talking about? In a summary, for me, that commiserating, story or whatever the case may be, was bland and lacked humanity and poise.
Right.
On this point.
All right. Now joining me on Open Conversation this morning is Dr. Nelson V.C. Okene. Dr. Nelson is a lecturer with the Department of Political Science, University of Port Harcourt. Good morning, Dr. Nelson.
Good morning.
And welcome to Open Conversation.
Thank you.
What is your take on the presidential speech, particularly with respect to the president commiserating with people, the families of those who lost their lives? Do you think it was lacking in empathy? Do you think it was actually a heartfelt regret over the incidents that happened during the protest?
I largely agree with my colleague, barrister, that it was bland, really, because that address is an address that would be beautiful as a self-examining address, something you give on October 1, and when you are self-accounting as a president of your nation. But as a response to a crisis of this magnitude, it was far less than what Nigerians could expect.
Okay.
It was far less. And so if the statement or the address has ended without reference to the dead, then it would be like, oh, you did not say that one. So it was just said practically to fulfill all righteousness. Because the fact that the president started that address on the point of blame, condemning the protesters, and then went on, and I disagree on one part. He said the president was not emotional. He was emotional. He was emotional only in the wrong direction. His emotional was geared towards justifying his policies and carrying on as if he was speaking under normal circumstances. His emotion was betrayed in the direction of trying to defend himself. For me, I felt that he took the business of governance personal. his emotion was more like to justify himself in the circumstances, in the issues leading to the demonstrations. It was not a response to crisis. That we are in the midst of a crisis, 4 days into the crisis, and the president spoke in that manner, and he hardly made any concessions with respect to the issues at stake.
All right.
Was not expected.
Yes. Then the president also in his speech indicted the state governors and the local governments councils. Let's look at what the president said. He said states and local governments receive highest allocations ever in our country's history from the federation account. Now, also, more than 570 billion naira has been released to the 36 states to expand livelihood support to their citizens. Mr. Sims, Dr. Nelson, I don't know if you are aware of the over 570 billion that has been, given to 36 states in the past 13 months. And when you divide that, that will be over 15 billion for each state. The question will be, what are the state governors doing with this money? What did the local government chairman, what did they do? What are they doing with this money? Let me start with you, Barrister Sims. What is your take on this development?
Well, I think the president, rightly indicted the state government and whatever his case may be. It's just that when you have a situation of this nature, one of the federating unit commander has come to say the other federating unit commanders, we shared XYZ amount of money to them. And I am so shocked that since this statement was made by the president, that none of the governors of the 36 states have challenged the president to say no. That is not true. And if you are putting this at the facts before me, I didn't collect whatever as the case may be. Because in some circumstances in law, silence may be admission or acceptance, as the case may be. Maybe in the days to come, one or two governors will say, no, I did not receive. But be that as it may, for me, it is not shocking, it's not new. Why am I saying this? I come from one of the, will I use the word, poorest states in Nigeria. And when I say I come from one of the poorest states in Nigeria, I mean by allocation. Because allocation I've seen on paper by, the MBS and whatever, that they published. I found that my state, do not get as much as Rivers State, Delta, etc. as the case may be. But the monies they collect monthly run into billions. Whether it's 1 billion naira, 2 billion naira on a monthly basis. And now that the increase, the allocation revenue has increased, I saw once that my state had close to 11 billion in a month. Now the question I've been asking is this: why is my state, for instance, so underdeveloped? If you go to Edo State, my state, you see nothing there but audio development. That is what they do, what I refer to audio development on television and on newspapers. And the governor goes out, sign memorandum. There was a particular company I felt, he's bringing this rubber company to Benin to revive the Nigeria Research Rubber Institute that was cited in Benin, and where we got the best, rubber, materials and products that companies that were involved in tires and whatever had to come to Benin in those days, set up their industries and factories there. But I got home quite last month or thereabout. I just said, let me spend one day and come back again to see somebody. I went round. There was nothing of that nature. So for many of the states. Now, even when do you know that I came across the convoy of the governor around the ring road area in Benin. I am telling you, my sister, what I saw, the armada, the convoy of choice cars that was on that particular line was shocking to me. Because when I tried to verify this in Google, I found that some of the cars cost as much as 800,000 pounds, so $800,000, as the case may be. That is just one. They call it iron or bulletproof or whatever, the armored car. That's what they call them. That is just the governor. The deputy governor is, the new deputy governor is from my area too. Now we were told, I was told locally that look at, if I go to his village, see what is displaying there. So I've asked this question. Now, even if my state is poor, with 6 billion a month, you should need to do something that will leverage and make people not to suffer the way we are suffering. We are not saying government should do everything for us, but create the enabling environment. So if it is true that this humongous amount of money was dispensed within 10 to 13, whatever the case may be, for me, proper as it is, but it is late in coming. Late in coming in the sense that if we had not had, this protest, as the case may be, and the president now seemed to be on the defensive, really now this figure to not defend himself to say, no, there is what we call in law contributory negligence. So it's not saying that the governors are part of the problem too. That is not what we are looking at this point. It is the proper thing to do, but it came very late. It cannot assuage or take you out of our periscope right now, as the case may be. Finally on this, and furthermore, I want to say with due respect that why I look at our leaders at times, that most of them are morally not upright. Some of them are not forthright in their dealings and attitude, as the case may be. They are always on the defensive instead of giving very simple explanation or reasons why we cannot do a thing. Now, let me tell you, the reason why we focus on the federal government, Mr. President, is this. The revenue allocation formula that we have in Nigeria today, 52.5% goes to the federal government. The remaining 48 point something goes to the states and the local government. So if you take the lion's share of whatever they are taking, because that is more than half of what you give to the other 36 states, that is why we hold you responsible. On the exclusive legislative list, out of 71, the federal government has exclusive 66 items. 66, in fact, 66, in fact, the list, I'm talking about the list of to do for both government and the federal government, state government in federation. The federal government has 66 items on the list. How many do the states people have? Then the state now, you now go to the residual list. The residual list of the state, the federal government is even tampering. It's even tampering, with that. Then you now have the concurrent list. The concurrent list, the federal government still has, jurisdiction with state and federal on this list that ought to be for the states. For instance, why should the federal government create a marriage registry in my local government? If I want to marry, what is the business of the presidency or for Nigeria about my marriage? It is as the case may be. So these are germane issues, and these are the reasons why this holy volley, and that's the reason why you find out that we periscope and focus everything on you, the federal government. So until you divert some of this, then we cannot begin to, do more than expected. But for now, and you take the chunk of the blame, the governors and local government chairmen also take part of the blame. But the big one at this moment is to the federal government.
All right. Dr. Nelson, what is your take on this monies being released to 36 states?
The timing, yes, is questionable. It could have come earlier. And it's also good that he mentioned it. So the governors know they have been called to account. And they definitely will begin to respond to it gradually over time, directly or indirectly. Mm-hmm. But again, the bulk of the responsibility, like you said, is the federal government's responsibility. They have the powers. And the policies that created this crisis were actually federal government policies. The removal of the subsidy, the floating of the naira, the security, national security issues, all these things are federal policies. So it amounts to passing the buck at this point in the midst of the crisis for him to start calling the governors. After all, we know by the kind of powers given to the presidency, the president in a modern constitution, especially in the case of Nigeria, all the powers, the buck stops with the president. So that for now should not even have been mentioned. He should have taken responsibility. He got up on the day he was inaugurated and said he was possessed with the spirit of courage. He did not consult anybody when he removed the subsidy. We expected that same courage, he should have used extra volume of that courage to deal with the issues instead of looking for people to share the blame with him.
All right. Probably to diffuse the tension building towards the federal government.
Yes.
And tell protesters, you also have to call your governors to account.
To account.
But the governors, don't you think, should be called to account?
They should.
Because if these monies have been trickling down to the grassroots and used judiciously for what it was meant for, probably the citizenry will not be feeling the impact of this hardship like they are feeling it right now.
They should be called to account, and corruption is one of the issues on the table too from the protesters. They call for reduction in the cost of governance, for instance. And you see that what the state governors are doing is essentially they try to mimic what the federal government is doing. When the federal government is acting in one direction, they also act. And that's why the federal government cannot even exercise any superior influence in the right direction over the state governors. Just like I was talking about the convoys, is it the lavish houses, is it the pension they give to ex-governors, is it the security votes? All these things that are being done at the state level, it's just a replication of what is happening at the federal level. So we believe that if at the federal level, the federal government is able to set the right examples, then it will now be in the position to actually call the states to order.
Right.
And then you see that the attention will begin to shift too. Because even now, all the states are not performing at the same level.
Okay.
There are states that are doing better, and there are others that are performing very badly. So all of them are not on the same level.
All right.
Yes.
If I may just add a little, I don't know if we have asked ourselves the reason why when the House of Assembly of States do have little issues within the legislature, the executive arm of government want to intervene immediately and create problem in the whatever its case may be. You know why? Because they have been dominating. They see the House of Assemblies as their colonies in their various states. Those who are supposed to hold the governors responsible are the House of Assemblies of the various states. They are supposed to do what they call the oversight function, to ask that, Mr. Governor, what have you done with the monies that were allocated to the state? The budget you are bringing, how are you going to finance it? These are questions they ought to have been asking the governors. But what happens is this: the moment the governor comes in, he inaugurates the house, he begins to, kind of lobby the House of Assemblies, and they now become a handbag, to him. Why will a particular House of Assembly to operate from government house? It's not just in Port Harcourt. We have seen in Edo where the House of Assembly have to operate from government house, with 9 people, as the case may be, feeding them, and they cannot even, if you begin to fuse power, then you cannot control, the executive arm of government. So this is where the problem is. Institutions should be strong in Nigeria. Let it be that the House of Assembly is an institution. It should be strong and different from the executive arm of government, which is an institution itself on its own. Unless and until we are able to do this and make our institution strong, all these things we are talking about is going to continue for decades, if not centuries, as the case may be.